Reaction to document 1075, Blake's response. It's been out for a little while. I've been reading through things. It answers very few questions. I thought it was going to answer a lot more, but actually it just brings up way more questions. The most significant things that I can see out of 1075, and I'm not any type of legal person, I have no legal experience whatsoever. The only things that I know are from things that I have witnessed and things that I have seen happen before, but those are mostly from the standpoint of criminal trials. I know nothing about a federal civil trial specifically. But 1075, Blake is essentially trying to strike or remove from evidence a few things, well, several things. Allegedly, she doesn't want these things to go into the hearing because these are things that could be catastrophically devastating to Blake, and not just to Blake, but Blake's narrative. Because that's the biggest thing out of all of this, is that to this point, we have no direct evidence from Blake. There's no recording, there's no video, there's nothing that shows exactly what Blake is claiming and proves her case, her claims. Right now, Blake's side is entirely revolving around and consisting of narrative. That's it. There's no facts, there's no evidence. It's just narrative. So the things that she's trying to potentially strike from going into trial are documents 874-17, which is Jamie Heath's timeline, documents 1065, Exhibit 17, which is a call log. We still don't know whose. I've been speculating and I've made an assumption. And you'll see when I talk about this later, you'll see how it comes out that I'm making big assumptions. We don't know whose it is. And then also document 1065 Exhibit 1, which is the Baldoni prayer thread. The other one is 1065 Exhibit 13, which is the signal depositions with Abel's excerpts. There's also several text threads that she does not want going into the hearing. Right now, basically, Blake doesn't want anything that she claims is inadmissible, prejudiced, or misleading. Yeah. And what document 1075 essentially serves as is a notice for what she wants to remove. Because again, this is all potentially stuff that is devastating to her narrative. When she has no evidence, narrative is all you have. So if you have things that disrupt your narrative, there goes your whole case, right? And in this way, what she's basically telling the judge and asking the judge is like, can we just pretend that these don't exist? So in that regard, me as an adult thinking of it in that way, I'm kind of like, I hope the judge is like, absolutely not, this is going in. The reason why I talk about the timeline, Jamie Heath's timeline, Wayfarer and Jamie Heath's timeline, they pretty much align. There's nothing in it that we're looking at like, wait, this doesn't line up. They're pretty much in agreement. However, Jamie Heath's timeline is pretty clean. I don't know who worked on it. I really super appreciate it. I still have a recording. I haven't finished about it because I do get so emotional reading it. So I'm just not going to say that because I've talked about it so many times that I haven't finished that recording because I get so emotional. But the timeline gives us added information like context that I don't think that we've seen in the timeline that Wayfarer has already provided right from the beginning of posting the lawsuit info. And it just gives a little bit more insight that makes it even more devastating to consider that this is the sequence of events and this is how things actually unfolded behind the scenes. This right now, her team is essentially trying to hide patterns of behavior because if you take away the timeline, you take away the call log, and even the prayer thread, you are essentially removing anything from being able to pin down Blake and her patterns of behavior. Because when you take away the prayer thread, one, it disrupts her narrative that like, oh, Justin Baldoni is this bad dude. You know, he's authoritarian. Holy cow, I couldn't say that. He's authoritarian. He yells, he's angry. That prayer thread paints a completely different picture. It paints a picture, and not just that he's not this powerful, explosive figure. It doesn't just disrupt that narrative. It also disrupts the narrative that Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, and Wayfarer were solely acting from a standpoint of retaliation. What that prayer thread dissolves is that claim, and instead it clearly gives us a picture that they were reacting, they were enduring, they weren't retaliating, they were experiencing the power and control that Blake was exerting over the production, over Baldoni and Wayfarer up until that point. So it disrupts the narrative, and also in that way, it breaks the pattern of behavior where we see that Blake is trying to paint this, Justin Baldoni as this really terrible human who's so flawed. He's disingenuous. He says he's a feminist, and yet he can yell at women. He says he's a feminist, yet, he was crying in my trailer. And it's just like these wild things. So then you go down the list and look at what else is in document 1075, and removing these things, striking them from the record before they go into the hearing. Timeline, the call log, the prayer thread, the depositions, the signal depositions, it breaks the ability to pinpoint the narrative inconsistencies in Lively's documents to this point. It also disrupts the ability to notice timing contradictions, because those two timelines, once you get Jamie Heath's timeline and Justin, like the Wayfarer timeline all together, you start to see the inconsistencies with Blake and what she's saying. So of course, take those out. Because right now, Blake hasn't provided us anything with a timeline, nothing that has a date stamp. We have no idea. We have no idea where she is attaching certain points of her side of the argument. And then what it also removes is the ability to determine if there's like coordination between PR and the legal strategy. And in that regard, also, we can't see whether or not there's orchestration. The call log with the call activity that could potentially disrupt the ability to determine if there's premeditation. Here's where it gets pretty interesting, though, because out of curiosity, I was like, I just wanted to see what words were said in this document. And when I did a word search, I came up with some pretty wild numbers. And this document is 259 pages. Baldoni's name is said 505 times. So that means, at bare minimum, his name is said twice at least on each page, which is expected. This is his case. This is about him and Lively. And then you work your way back from there. Heath's name is mentioned 275 times, which again, he's mostly involved. You drop down to Steve Sarwitz, and Sarwitz's name comes up 170 times. 170 times, which is just wild to me, because this guy, I think in total, may have been on set twice. 170 times his name is brought up, which I get it. He is the CEO, he's the head of everything, but that is a wild amount of times for how little he was physically involved. And even by his deposition, he seems to almost be like unaware of really what's happening in terms of production, in terms of what's happening on the set, and even with Wayfarer. He just sounds like the guy who signs the checks and okays the things that happen with Wayfarer and the studio. He doesn't sound like the guy who's coming in and, checking timesheets and reading the schedules. He doesn't seem like that kind of guy. So for his name to be in there 170 times, wild. Then you go to Sachs. And how many times is Alex Sachs' name in this document? 64 times. Which, why all of a sudden is Alex Sachs all over this document? Up until this point, we really haven't seen or heard much about her, except that she was a producer. Moving down the list, then Reynolds' name brought up 22 times. The word that comes up quite a lot, though, around this number is 75, and that word is agreement. 75 times. The word sexual, 49 times. But when you read through it, when you click through all of the points that it said, it's not talking specifically about something that happened. It's talking about scenes, the descriptions of scenes, things that were supposed to be depicted by the actors and actresses. Even the same thing with the word sex. It's said 3 times, and almost always in regards to the way that they were planning what was supposed to be filmed in scenes. It's not talking about actual things that happened between Baldoni and Lively. And the word sexy is mentioned 5 times. The word genitals, 3 times. Twice was in reference to when Lively was describing how she was presented during the birthing scene. And I don't remember that. I think the third is a footnote. I think the third is a footnote. The word uncomfortable, 4 times. Really weird that in a document about sexual harassment, the word uncomfortable is only mentioned 4 times, considering agreement is stated 75 times. The word porn, 0. Pornography, 0. The word privacy, once. Which is weird because you would think that if there were these breaches of privacy, which is essentially what I am using to describe the moment where Jamie Heath is said to barge into Blake's trailer, you would think that a performer would be like, we really need to work on the privacy. I really need improvements for my privacy. But privacy only comes up once in this document. And you know what it's in relation to? False light. It's not even about her and her needs. It's about the claims in this case. Topless, 0. Naked, 0. Nude, 0. It's very weird. The word count. It's almost like the word count is the tell what the actual problem is, and it's not sexual harassment. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because that's the other thing. Swift's name comes up 10 times. And for what? For what? Nothing of substance. Nothing that's scathing. And this is the biggest thing. This was the reason why I made this post, is because the who and the what. The who and the what is missing, okay? Out of this whole thing, we have everybody involved that is this far out from the case. We have nobody that was there at the times that these happened. We don't have the hairdresser, we don't have the makeup artist, we don't have the driver, we don't have the bodyguard, we don't have the camera, we don't have the crew, we don't have the first AD, the second AD, we don't even have the intimacy coordinator. The intimacy coordinator wasn't even called as a witness. Why? The unit production manager, where are they? There's no line producer, no one. So many people that were in the room, could have been in the room, could have been there. Like, anybody who was in even a secondary position to any of these events are not being called in. We have tertiary and beyond. Why? And then here's the biggest tell. This is my biggest tell, okay? This, to me, allegedly, was all about the takeover, and it has that written all over it. Why? Because when she comes in day 2, she has a problem with Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath, and immediately starts to target the producer positions, and she stays on the producer positions the entire time. She doesn't have a problem with anyone else except for the first AD and the second AD, but she gets them replaced. That is the second biggest tell. She has a problem, she gets rid of them. She can't replace the producers because the producers are the rights holders. She brings in Alex Sachs. She brings in, I think, another producer. I can't remember how many producers there are in total, but she couldn't remove Justin and Jamie. So she had Alex Sachs and other producers work on this project, and yet her problem was specifically with Justin, and yet she didn't have him replaced as the director. She didn't make a request to have him removed, replaced. There's no report to the unions. The unions could have shut down the set. The unions could have had Justin and Jamie both removed, but none of that happened. And in my mind, allegedly, what I'm thinking is that she was targeting the producer positions because what it makes me wonder is, was the language in the contract with Colleen, did it specifically say that the rights holders are the producers instead of saying that the rights holders are Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath, or the rights holders are the producers of Wayfarer? Because she hammers at the producer positions specifically. Anybody else who got in her way that she didn't like, removed. Got a new composer, replaced the first and second AD. She basically replaced wardrobe. She didn't fire them, but she sure didn't let them do their job themselves. She didn't like the writing. She wrote the new lines she wanted. If she didn't write them, she let her husband write them. None of her evidence is directly on her claims, not on the events, not on the parties. It's all 2 miles out from the events that she claims that happened. Why? I think, allegedly, that she was targeting the position of the producers, because that's the other thing. It's not just that she replaced, it's not that she couldn't remove the producers. It's that even when she had other producers called in, even when that didn't work, she fought for the ability to get a PGA mark and to be considered a producer for this movie. Which is why I wonder, what is the language in the contract for the rights to the sequel? Did it say producers? And is that why she was hammering away at Justin and Jamie right from day 2? Because they're the producers and she needed to get rid of them in order to get the sequel. And when push came to shove and none of that worked, because that's the other thing. That is the other thing. That is another big tell. Because in my mind, I'm thinking she was hammering away at them as producers. 1, and then 2, she was expecting something to go sideways, because from the very beginning, she immediately goes after a claim that could be attached to an EEOC claim, could be attached to protected activity, so that she could get the protection from retaliation. Because in her footnotes, in her complaints, she also tries to go after claims that are attached to protected activity, the breastfeeding, the breast pumping. She's trying to assert herself as a protected class, as a woman facing potential discrimination. So in my mind, I'm thinking this is another big tell, that she allowed Justin and Jamie to stay on set, and she couldn't get rid of them, and yet wanted to bulldoze her way into all of the places and spaces that she demanded when she couldn't get her claim to stick, because they said, "Oh, okay, we agree to the 17-point agreement. Oh, okay, yeah, no problem." Because she couldn't call it retaliation. So she had them stay on set because I think she was waiting for something to go sideways, for them to expose themselves as bad guys, and then she could exploit and leverage their poor behavior. But what happened? Every time she bull in a china shopped her way through it, Justin was the one out front saying, "Okay, okay, okay, we really don't want to give you this, but we'll still give you this. Okay, I've been told that we shouldn't give you this, but we'll make it happen." I think Justin was kept as the director because she hoped that she would poke and poke and poke until he exploded, and then she would have all the evidence that she needed. That, "See, this dude's bad. He sexually harassed me and he was explosive to women, and now look at what he did. And now he's retaliating against me." But the problem was, Justin and Jamie are not the ones. Justin and Jamie are who they are, and they never exploded. And her desperate want and need for them to be bad guys never came to fruition. So now here she is with egg on her face trying to be like, "It's retaliation." It's not. They're reacting. They're defensive against what has been happening to them for years. Let me know what you think. If you have questions, if you see something I missed, let me know because I wanna talk about it.